Well, it looks like Christmas come early, folks. Let me get some boxes out and show you. So we got the parts out here for our 1967. You guys that's been watching, you know, on the International, the focus of that project was to not buy any more than we had to buy and to make everything. Just to kind of show that, you know, you can do this. The 67, on the other hand, I really don't want it to take a full year, right? The International we worked 6 months on the body work on it, making all the panels. If I was a little better, maybe it would have been a little faster, but this time we're gonna buy panels. So let me get the camera and let me walk you around. As a refresher, we're gonna go do a once-over on the 67, and then we'll come back here and I'll show you which pieces I decided to just buy replacement panels. And there are pieces we're still going to have to make. So just as a reminder, here's our 67, short wheelbase, you know, small back window. Found a better front end for it. And now we need to work on the cab. So, it's a little dirty, but it's not too bad. You know, there's the rear, I don't know if you can see that, there's the rear cab support, or the rear cab corner, and the rocker. The doors actually don't look too bad. The floorboard, you know, the floorboards aren't too bad. Got a little bit of work on them. The inside of the door jambs, they got a little bit of rust on them. But they're actually not too bad. They're a lot better than my 71. Let's go look at the other side. Yeah, that door's got one little bugaboo on it, but that's not bad. It's got the rockers. Rear cabs, you know, the rear cab corners. Here's the inside on this one. On the driver's side, it actually doesn't look that bad either. You know, this rear cab floor back here is rusted out. The more interesting one, but let me see if I can get rid of the cobweb. You know, the more interesting one is the upper header above that windshield. And the sun's out here and I'm having a hard time. Let me see if I can get it from the other side. Well, I'll see if I can lighten it up, but that's going to be a tough one. Anyway, the upper header panel is gone. What surprised me is the top doesn't seem to have any through rust in it, so I am optimistic that it's the lower half of this upper windshield header. We'll find out when we get it out of there. But other than that, you know, the fenders seem to be in good shape. No big issues on the fenders. I think my hood, if I remember right, I got a little, somewhere, oh, there we go. There's a little bump right there. Driver's side fender, looks like it's in good shape. Don't have the hood hinges on, but the inner wheel wells are not bad. The radiator support's not bad. So overall, this is actually a pretty solid truck. All right, once we get to digging in and we do the normal stuff, I think this is a pretty solid truck. Famous last words, right? The International we thought was a pretty good truck too, but I'm a little more familiar with the Chevys, and this one I think is not too bad. Now, all 4 cab mounts are rusted, so the 4 cab mounts, the cab mount brackets, they got to be fixed. I don't know if I can get under there or not. Well, maybe. Right. So these cab mount brackets are kind of toast, but the good news is they're not rusted all the way back, and that's actually the worst one. Again, it's the bottom down here, and we'll have to do the, we'll have to do the inner rocker, but that's just flat plate. All right, so let's go see what we got. All right, let's see what we got here. So there's the header panel, inner header panel. Got the rocker for, outer rockers both sides. There's the cab floor for the left and right side. There's the cab corners, and then up here is the cab supports. Now, I still left plastic on one of them because those are the rear, I believe. Anyway, there's a left and right. On the front, and I think I got that right. Yeah, the front, the cab supports are the same, so it doesn't matter. But just in case I decided to mix those up, I wanted to leave part number on one of them. And then the piece de resistance, right? 67 specific short wide bed sides, right? They're 67 because they don't have the marker lights. 68, all the new safety regulations came out, so everybody had to put side marker lights on. I don't know if it's universal, but 68's also when the hazard lights came on. So, you might be asking, why'd you buy bed sides? Why didn't you go find a complete bed? Well, I don't know what it's like in your area, but we don't find 67 short wide beds, right? I haven't seen actually one of those pop up in a while. And if they do pop up, they are beat up, they are rusty, they're a mess, and they're still $1,500. If it's nice, it's easy. I've seen them, I guess the majority of the ones I've seen that are in decent shape are in that $1,500 to $2,000 range. I'm like, that's just stinking crazy. So the ones we see around here are for 68 to 72s, which have the marker lights, which if you're going to put on the 67, you got to fill them up, right? So they run $800 to $1,200. That's kind of the going rate. And an $800 short wide bed, that thing's kind of rough. It's kind of rough. So on my 71, right, you guys have seen that kind of float in and out. On my 71, it was a long wheelbase truck, and I put a short bed on it. I ordered the bed sides. I actually ordered those, paid the truck freight, which is like $250 to have those shipped down. And then I took the 8-foot bed that I had, took the tailgate, took the front, took the wheel wells, and then took the bed floor. It had a steel bed floor in it. I cut 12 inches of the bed floor out in the back, and I cut 8 inches of the bed floor out in the front, welded them together, and then bolted everything together, right? I don't know if it was just luck of the draw or what, but all the bolt holes lined up with my bed and these bed sides. I did spend a little bit of time thinking, but in the end, even I was surprised that the bolt holes that, that bolt this bed to the floor, all of them lined up. Actually, one didn't. One did not line up. But it just bolted together. So my 71 is a short wide bed, brand new bed sides. The floor, the floor is in pretty good shape. The front panel was not bent. It was in pretty good shape. Tailgates had a tough life. I'll be the first to admit. I had to spend some time working on the tailgate. But I got $1,200 in effectively new sheet metal. There is absolutely no rust on that bed that's on my 71. On the 67, I've got the long wide bed for the 67. It's actually in pretty good shape. It's not beat up, it's not rusted. So the other thing about the long bed I have, you guys been watching, you're gonna smile at this. It's got a wood bed in it. So, and my lovely bride decided she wants a wood bed in the 67. So that makes it even easier, right? So all of the rails out of the 67 long wide bed with a wood floor, they'll just fit in here, right? As far as I know, everything is interchangeable. Just don't need as many rails. So let's see. So why did I decide to get these now? LMC had a Christmas special. If you drive to Kansas City, actually it's Lenexa, Kansas, but if you drive to Kansas City and you bring some Toys for Tots, you pick up at the store, they'll give you 15% off. That was yesterday and today. And yesterday was the 6th of December, today the 7th of December. So in general, if you can drive to Lenexa, Kansas, you call 24 hours in advance, drive to Kansas City basically, pick them up, they kind of got a going rate where you get a 10% discount. So it's a good deal. So those beds were like $470 a piece, which sounds like a lot of money, but if you think about it, I now have a 1967 short wide bed, probably with tax, you just roll it up about 500 pieces. There's $1,000 in bed sides. I've got all the pieces on the long bed that they're actually in really good shape. So for basically $1,000, I've got a short wide bed for a 67 Chevy that has absolutely no rust on it. And all the panels are straight. It's easy to paint. And if these are anything like the ones on my 71, I didn't have to tweak them. I didn't have to do anything. Everything bolted together. So these come from Taiwan, but my 71 panels were good. They fit great. Anyway, that's why, for the second time, I chose to go get the panels. It just, all the way around, it seems to me it's a better deal. I just can't imagine the amount of money people want for a really beat up short wide bed. All right, so I haven't really heard any feedback in terms of whether you guys have a preference for what the next project is. So given that I got these that showed up, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to start working on the building the jig for the trailing arms, because like I said before, we need at least 3 sets of trailing arms. So I guess the next project is going to be doing some sheet metal work on a 67, working on trailing arms for the trailing arm Chevy pickups, and don't forget the 57 out there's got trailing arms under it. All right, here's the almost finished product. Sometimes it takes a while to make them look pretty. So still got to round the corner. Still got to round the corner and cap it, and the back's not capped, but this is nice. It doesn't look like it's as big as that, but I can tell you this is substantially stronger than this. This is 3/16 2x3 tubing. It's a little bit beefier than this one is. And there's no seam down the middle for it to collect dirt and rust. Or, yeah. So, the polyurethane bushings, they need an 1 3/4 sleeve. And one of the earlier videos, I think I showed you, I was making these things on the lathe. These things are only 1 3/4 wide. This is 2-inch tubing, so basically had to notch out, cut the side of the tubing off, and inset it so that my 1 3/4 tubing, or my 1 3/4 collar, right, would stick out on both sides, and it would allow that polyurethane bushing to fit. Not a big deal. Nothing a grinder didn't fix. Let me show you. Right, so I just cut along the inner wall right there, and just cut out that square, and then just dropped it down and cut off the extra. Still got to do some more grinding and some touch up, but it's fine for right now. I'm gonna make sure it all fits before I go to the trouble to round the corners. I think it's gonna fit. It looks like everything lines up with the factory trailing arm I've got there. You can kind of see the paint stripes. I had this laying on there when I painted it. This is how it sets on the back, right? The rear end sets in here. These are the spring pad, or the, I guess, trailing arm pads. These will get welded. In this case, probably the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all the brackets off that 8.8 that's on the 57 and get these trailing arms put on and weld these pads to that 8.8 so I can get that 57 up on wheels permanently. When it was all said and done, once you get the dimensions, this is pretty simple. I struggled with it most of the day, just trying to figure out all of the dimensions. Every trailing arm I've got seems to be tweaked a little bit. It's bent, it's rusted. So, the cardboard that the bedsides came in, they came in handy because I laid out some, life-size patterns. Try to figure this out. Once I got all the dimensions, it's pretty straightforward. Let me get this stuff off the table and let me show you how I made this. All right, so started with a piece of tubing. These things, in the end, are 58 inches long. Now, like I said, the issue was trying to come up with the numbers. Now, the first one wasn't, that's that you just pick a number, right? So I decided to come 1 3/4 in from the end and center line, and so that goes right there. I ordered a set of those Amazon Harbor Freight carbide hole cutters. Let me go get these things. All right. I've used those Linux hole saws for a long time, and I'm happy with them. Most of the time I was using them, vast majority of the time I was using those things for carpenter work. But I'd used them for metal because they were bimetal hole saws. These are the cat's meow, folks. They're not very expensive, relatively speaking. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 hole saws in here, and they're all carbide tipped. You got to clamp down your workpiece. If you let it shatter, you'll break the the carbides off. So just be aware of that. But I used the 2-inch hole saw and made a hole right there for that. That one's pretty straightforward. The next order of business was to try to figure out what that kick up is. And, I don't know if I actually measured that thing after I got done matching it up with the factory one. Let me measure that thing real quick. All right, let's see here. So when it was all said and done, I've got somewhere between 13 and 14 degrees. Let's call it 13 and a half. I'm not sure it matters that much. You know, all the trucks I got, they're gonna be lowered a little bit in the back, and that changes the angle of the dangle and everything. So as near as I could tell, measuring all the rest of them, that's the angle on that pickup. Measure your own. All right. So the next step was to figure out where these spring holes were. And for that, I used the famous sewing tape. That worked pretty good. So in my case, right, now when you measure that, you got to take into account that you're going to pie cut this thing. So that pie cut is 5/8 of an inch, at least in terms of what I got going on. So I cut a 5/8 inch pie cut out. So in the end, you got to add that dimension to this to get the measurement. So in my case, if I remember right, yeah, my first hole came in at 51 3/4, and the next one just shy of 56. 55 15/16. I'm not sure 56 wouldn't work, right? Because they're slopping these holes. Anyway, that's what I came up with there. This knee, this was challenging because all of those stinking things were so bent. I just kind of guess and bagosh, right? So 47 inches, there we go. All right, that's the number I settled on. And that's from the end of the tube, remember. That's not from the center line of the bushing you got to put in. Remember, I put that bushing 1 3/4 in from the end. So, again, measure yourself, but that is what I came up with. So, we got about 13, you know, we could do the math on this, but I haven't done it yet. So you're just getting what I'm measuring. 47 inches from the end. This is 5/8. Yeah, that's a 5/8 pie cut. This one came in at, what did we say? $51 3/4. And that one's just under 56. That's actually that's all the holes you need, right? That is all the information you actually need to put this thing together. Now, for those of you who are familiar with these trailing arms, you know that there's actually another hole, right here. And I didn't put it in this one. It's gonna have to go in that one, but I'm gonna be a little more strategic when I put that hole in. That holds the lower coil spring in. There's a bolt that goes through the trailing arm, and there's this goofy looking round pie pan looking thing that goes into the coil spring, and a bolt goes through all that, and it holds the coil spring in there. That's its purpose in life. I thought I would wait until I put the coil spring in the truck, because in my 71, the coil was kind of tweaked just a little bit. Now obviously it works all right, but since I'm building the trailing arms, I thought maybe I'd design that coil spring holder to fit the coil springs I'm going to put in there, which are probably the 4-inch drop ones. So there is another hole that goes in here that you bolt the coil springs on. Most of the aftermarket trailing arms I've seen, there's a round pad here, and most of the time there's a pad here. I'm not sure why. Let me get the axle pads. So these get welded to the axle. We're going to weld these to that 8/8 that's underneath the 57. And, you know, I'm not sure I need a big wide pad on top of this. This 2-inch tubing seems like it fits on there pretty good. So this is the way they're going to be under the truck. I might put a little bigger pad here for the coil spring, but at this point, unless I run into problems, I'm not sure why I need a pad on top of this. Again, you know, these are my measurements. You measure yours, and you know, make your own decisions. But if you don't have trailing arms, this will get you started probably. I think they're pretty close, but I'm not going to guarantee them. They should get you close enough so you can tell if you need to add or subtract something somewhere. I'm pretty happy about this. Another piece that I actually forgot to mention is I've got bushings welded in here, right? So this coil spring doesn't tighten up against the tubing. It doesn't tighten up against the rectangular tubing. I've got round tubing that's welded in here, and it'll tighten up against the round tubing, which is the way it ought to be. You know, if you got any questions, you know, leave it in the comment. Like I said, the biggest hassle on this was just figuring out what the dimensions were. Spent quite a bit of time with rulers and squares, and I got the cardboard I took the bed sides out of. Yeah, that's kind of come in handy because I laid out life-size models and tried to figure them out. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with this. What we got to do now is we got to build 5 more of these. Got 3 trucks that need them. We need 3 total sets. We got 1. So we're going to get after it.